dose of OnlyCans, that's your only man. So sit back, relax, that's the only plan. Grab yourself a Guinness or Peroni, man. Welcome to the show, this is OnlyCans. Cheers! Alright lads, how are you doing? Welcome to OnlyCans. I've wanted to do a podcast for a good while. Here we are. OnlyCans is going to be myself, guests. There's a couple of things already pre-recorded. Hopefully one episode a week talking about all things cans, pints, pubs. Hopefully the concept will go something like, obviously, COVID, blah, fucking blah. In terms of having guests on, I would love to do a lot of the guests in person. I have a couple pre-recorded from December. So hopefully the weekly schedule will go 1 week me and maybe a couple of Zoom calls, a couple of phone calls, and then the next week a pre-recorded guest in person. First things first, let's crack this baby open. Bit of ASMR. People often say, are you sick of the cans yet? Surprisingly, they've actually kind of grown on me over the last few months as opposed to getting sick of them. I used to do the whole freeze the glass for 10 minutes and pour it sideways and wait there. Now I just fucking dunk it in. You're going to get a few bubbles on top. They'll go away. You're always going to get ahead. I was finding with every fifth or sixth can, if I just did the normal technique, the side pour, tilted the glass 45 degrees, sometimes there was absolutely no head, but when you pour it in so violently and aggressively like this, you're always going to get a decent looking pint, you know? So, slide you lads, here's to OnlyCans. And I have to say, the new glass is semi-growing on me. I think it came out in 2012. I was very much against it, but to be honest, I had barely even started drinking Guinness by then. But I know everyone was so against it. Everyone seems to still be so against it, but this is the custom one I got with Guru on it from the storehouse. I think it was only like £8 to be fair. I actually did a poll on my Instagram and I thought it would be more for the old glass, but it was actually something like, I think it was about 77-23, is that the right maths? 77-23 in favour of the old glass. And I wonder, does that mean that, because I know a lot of young people, like kind of 18 to 20, those type of lads are following me on Instagram, and I wonder, like, they're the new Guinness drinking generation. That's what they know. Do you know, they weren't, the old glass didn't come in, and the new glass didn't come in, I should say, and like fuck their whole thing up. They're not like 60-year-olds who've been drinking Guinness for 40 years, and then this new glass comes in. So I feel like the younger you are, if you're in that sort of 18 to like 24 demographic, ever since you've been drinking Guinness, this glass has been around and it's more just an option now. So I definitely say if I went back and checked who's voting for what, it was probably younger lads don't seem to mind, whereas it's us old fogies who are like, you took away our old glass, you bastards. People just hate change, and I'm not advocating the new glass whatsoever, but all I'm saying is in the 2021 now, the 9 years it's been around, it has grown on me slightly. So another 9 years I might actually like it, but no, it's a solid glass. So a topic I really wanted to talk about in this, because this is going to be the only episode that goes out in January. So this should be out on the 27th of January. Then from then it's going to be obviously February, blah, blah, blah. Dry January. I've been asked a few times on Instagram, do you do dry January? Have you ever done it? Are you doing it this year? Not doing it this year. And look, I'm not trying to come across as I'm fucking hard as fuck. I don't do dry January. I just saying, I genuinely have never done it. In the last few years, like, don't get me wrong, I pre-COVID, I was the same as everyone else. Get pissed over Christmas, eat loads of shite. But I don't think I had, definitely once January came, you have that urge to get fit, to lose weight, be healthy, blah, blah, blah. But I just never felt like depriving myself. If I wanted to have 3 or 4 bottles of beer on a Saturday night in January, I just didn't feel the need to make myself not be able to do that. So dry January for me just never was a thing. I totally get why people do it, and I'd say it's a decent feeling at the end. Now don't get me wrong, I've gone over a month without drinking alcohol But it was probably just by chance. Probably just like maybe when you're playing sport and stuff, you're a bit more aware. But as I've definitely in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, I used to never be the type of guy who would want one beer or 2 beers, say on a Friday or Saturday night, chilling here in the apartment, stick on a movie, literally 2 or 3 beers or 2 or 3 cans of Guinness, happy out. Don't have that impulse to be like, right, obviously you can't now because of COVID, but don't have that impulse to be like, right, where are we going? Like, am I going to the pub? Like, I can have the 3 beers, and I wouldn't have done that before when I was 21, 22. And I'm very surprised at that. And I'd say there's plenty of lads like that who get to their kind of late 20s, early 30s, and you kind of sit back and you have those few beers. You kind of feel like an old lad because you don't want to then go to the pub and then go out and get pissed. Now, some of you might, but yeah, personally, dry January, I don't want to deprive myself of the 3 or 4 bottles if I want to have them, just for the sake of saying I did a month of no drinking. So yeah, that's my opinions on it, but listen, each to their own. Washing and drying the glass after every can, a big old debate currently going on, definitely on my kind of Instagram, because I am definitely, this is the weird thing, right? I don't have like a special way of washing the glass. I just wash it like any other average Joe. I know, like, I remember Kieran from the Gravedigger saying they have a specific washing machine just for Guinness glasses, and that's what gives them the shtick, because the chemicals and all, they're not mixing into the glass. That's great and all, but like, no one's doing that at home, let's be honest. So I actually find you get more shtick and you get a bit more of a creamier pint, as gross as it sounds, when you use the same glass 2 or 3 times, because I find on the first one, now to be fair, that's not that bad shtick, but I find in the first one it kind of just seems to slide down unless it's like the glass is bone dry. So if you're washing the glass every time, you're not going to have it bone dry, and then there's just going to be no shtick. It's just going to slide down every time. Shtick, slidey shtick. So I just find, if you can, I just find like that, have your first one, dunk the second one straight in, dunk the third one straight in, then maybe swap glasses or have one in the fridge or freeze or whatever it is. But yeah, like I've said before, if you're drinking beer out of a glass, would you use a new glass every time? Would you rewash it every time? I don't think you would. You just keep pouring the cans of beer in. If you're drinking wine, you just keep topping up the wine. I know it's kind of different because it doesn't leave as much residue and sticker and all that sort of shit, but yeah, I don't, if you're being judged for not washing the glass every time, that's not right. And you should, whoever's saying that to you is not a true friend. You should be able to slam dunk at least 3 of these into the one glass before you go washing it. So I had the cans of Kilkenny. People always say, if you're not drinking Guinness, what are you drinking? And it changes so much, because I'll be totally honest, like I've gone through, I know the Guinness Guru, but I've gone through a phase lately in the last kind of 3 or 4 months of drinking Corona Light, to be specific. Corona Extra, decent Corona Light with a bit of lime. Never really liked Corona before. Back in the day, would have drank Coors Light, kind of Heineken, obviously Guinness a lot, but the one kind of that is the one shooting star that has really shone over the last kind of year is Kilkenny. It's basically a cream ale. Everyone's heard of it, but it's a cream ale. I find if you want to get the best experience with Kilkenny, have 2 or 3 cans of Guinness, or just one, whatever. Have a can of Guinness and then have a can of Kilkenny, and you'll really know. Like, if you go from beer to Kilkenny, you might notice it, but if you drink Guinness and then drink Kilkenny, it genuinely is just like I've said before, it's kind of like a mix between beer and Guinness, because it doesn't have that heavy bitter taste of Guinness, and let's be honest, the cans are never going to be that smooth. Oh yeah, hiccups. This is the problem with this OnlyCans crack, fucking hiccups. Yeah, trust me, Kilkenny is, I've had so many people say to me, like message me saying, I can't find Kilkenny in the shops, what's the crack, I want it. And all I'm saying, lads, like, all I know is I did a review on Kilkenny in maybe March, April 2020, and ever since, all I know is ever since that review, shops have been struggling to keep it on the shelves. That's all I know. I'm not saying that I have changed the world or anything like that. I'm not saying because of me Kilkenny's sales have gone through the roof. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is I did a video review saying it was one of the nicest alcoholic beverages I've ever had in my entire life, and all of a sudden it's sold out everywhere. And people are messaging me saying, I want to try Kilkenny, I love it, where can I get it? That's all I'm saying. So Kilkenny, if you're watching, you're welcome. That's all I'm saying. Right, I'm going to try the old technique for the crack. Let's see what happens. I have to put the mic down. No, looks pretty solid, to be fair. But to be honest, I think it was some of the shtick that was just, again, it always sounds gross, but it's not. Like, it's grand. It's your own glass. That actually looks great. I think it was some of the shtick that was on it just kind of joined the head, and it's all sitting on top now. That's going to look unreal. It's one thing I have to say about Guinness. You would think I'd be sick of looking at it, but like when you compare it to other, like you compare it to just like you pour like a fucking can of Budweiser into a pint glass. You compare what that looks like to that. The aesthetic of it all, lads. I'll try split the G for the crack. When the camera even be able to see, we'll see what happens. Oh my fuck me, I am good. I'll push it all the way to the front. I have to say, it is mad, but the cans of Guinness, as much shite as I gave them before, they're still not incredible. Like, people always say, what would a can of Guinness compared to like a pint in a pub? Like, nowhere near. Like that is a good can of Guinness right there. If I got served that as a pint in a pub, I'd probably give it a 6.1. So like, not a horrific score, but for a can, like the best can you can possibly have is like a 6.2 in a pub. There's no comparison. Like, there just isn't. You will never anything that's like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in a pub. You never get the same in a can. So all I'm saying is the cans are grand. It's like a 6 out of 10 pint. You'd sit in a pub and drink 6 out of 10 pints all day long. Don't fucking lie to me. You would. So for me, yeah, they're grand. Like, it was another kind of big realization I got today. I'm filming this on Sunday. Yesterday was Saturday. Yesterday was probably the first, I wouldn't say it was a major hangover, but Friday night I probably had, it was the first time that the first time in a long, don't get me wrong, I've been sipping on the can, sipping on beers like pretty much most weekends, but max would be 4 or 5. Friday night, me and housemate Dave just said fuck it, few beers. I had a good few cans of Guinness. I could have had 7 or 8 cans of Guinness, and I think I had 1 can of Kilkenny, and I might have had 4 or 5 kind of shot. It's not shot like, but 4 or 5 whiskies, drinking straight Jameson. So I wake up yesterday, Saturday morning, probably wake up at like midday, and it really, and I'm sure everyone can relate, like, because we haven't been going out to nightclubs, haven't gone to pubs, we've been drinking at home, but I think most of us aren't going too hard on it. Like, it gets to 12, 1 o'clock, and you're just like, right, I'll just go to bed, and you might have had 6 or 7 beers, but you're not going anywhere, so you're not going to be unbelievably hungover the next day. But anyway, I think everyone can relate to that first time you might just go a bit overboard during a lockdown, and you just have a good few, and you wake up the next day and you go, fuck me, you don't miss the hangovers, do you? Everyone's tweeting and making all these funny Instagram stories, like memes, like, I just want to be dying hungover with a fucking chipper on the way and a fucking big bag of jelly. I just want that, kind of making that joke that like, I'll take it all back for that. You say that, but then when you wake up hungover, you're like, fuck, I don't want that, because it's fucking brutal crack. So I woke up, and then the topic was the shits. So a guy did message on Instagram being like, how do you deal with the shits? And he's so right, because I probably only had, I probably had 7 or 8 cans of Guinness. And like, close your ears if you don't want to, if you're eating your dinner or something now. But I think I woke up at 12 o'clock, and I must have had 4 shits before 2 o'clock. And that was only 8 cans of Guinness. Like, there's times where you go to the pub and have, Jesus, 11, 12 pints and whatever else, and the shites. Like, it really is a thing. Anyone who drinks Guinness knows it's like the price you pay. Like, you could have beers all night, you wake up the next day hungover, whatever. Obviously you're shitting. We're all shit. Great topic, Dara. But you wake up and like, the worst thing is, like, do you know when you're hungover and you just, a good old fart is just grand. You just let rip, fart, grand. It feels like after you're drinking a heap of Guinness, every time you go to fart, you need a shit. So you don't even get the satisfaction of letting an absolute ripper out of your arse and just going. Every time you go to do it, you're like, oh no, that's a dump, that's a poo. So take a shite, go to fart 20 minutes later, you need to take a shite. You're shiting till the fucking cows come home. So it is brutal. How do you deal with it? I don't know. Just make sure, if you're drinking Guinness the night before, you just make sure you're not going anywhere. You're not going on any long walks, any long drives where you don't have access to a toilet. You better sit your ass down in your gaff for the day. Not even a day. It's probably the first 4 or 5 hours of being up. After like I would say yesterday, my hangover was totally gone by like 5 o'clock. So I had 4 or 5 hours being a bit like, oh Jesus, don't miss the hangovers. But that definitely was the whiskey, the actual hangover part of it. You could be not hungover at all and still be shitting your brains out. That's just Guinness for you. We all know that. It's a love-hate relationship. You love the pints, you hate the shits, but you got to take them as they come. Can't live with you. Can't live without you, Guinness. Now this brings me to my last topic, lads. Worst hangover I've ever had. I was asked this on Instagram. I don't have one. I have some shockers, but I don't have one where I know people always say like, oh, and then I fucking got sick of me hands, or then I shat me pants, or whatever. I've gotten sick, I've shat me arse off, but I haven't. I've been fortunate enough that it hasn't really happened in like a weird public scenario or anything like that. There was one time, I don't know if it was the worst hangover, but it was just like the worst, because like we all love drinking and we say it's great. It can also be a bastard at times, but thankfully I haven't done anything majorly stupid on a night out in a good few years. Here's an exclusive, a Guru exclusive, and this is what I kind of want OnlyCans to be, just like an open thing. Like, obviously going to talk about Guinness pints, blah blah blah, but an open platform where we can tell stories and not be judged. But I'll definitely be judged. But basically, what I'm trying to say is you're probably going to get to know me a bit more through this podcast. Not just going to be me going, yeah, Guinness pints, yeah. So anyway, I used to be a hooer, and I'm sure loads of lads can relate. I used to be a hooer for pissing everywhere when I was drinking. I think the first time it happened, I was probably 19, 20. I think I was staying in some random house, and I don't even know, did I piss? I only ever pissed the bed once, but I don't know, did I piss? I used to just, in my own house, my back in my home house, my bedroom actually had a little tiny ensuite in it with a bathroom. And multiple times between the age of 20 to say 22, probably every second time I drank, I would get up and big disclaimer, I never had any recollection. And so obviously, oh, you say you don't remember, you fucking idiot, you do remember. Genuinely don't remember like any of the times it happened, but obviously I did do it. I'd cut to the chase. I wake up and the bathroom would be 5 feet away, and I'd piss all over the floor, and I'd obviously go back to bed, and I'd wake up and I'd see the floor, and like I wouldn't be tactically pissing in the corner or anything. I'd literally whip me todger out and just go for fucking broke. I'd wake up and the jeans would be soaked, and the wallet could be in the jeans, the phone could be in the jeans, all drenched. The t-shirt, the shirt, the shoes, all drenched. The floor soaking wet. And I just think, what the fuck did you do that for? Like, why didn't you literally walk 5 feet to the bathroom? And I did it. I've been on holidays and I pissed on my mate's luggage and stuff, like shocking stuff. But thankfully, I literally haven't done it in, I'd say, 3 years. So thank fuck. But I've also heard of plenty lads. I've heard of plenty lads who do it, like these shocking pissing stories. And the worst, it's not necessarily with the hangover, but the worst thing I ever did with the pissing was I was in New Zealand, and it was my first. I was there a while. It was my first day in Christchurch. I kind of knew people in Christchurch, but I wasn't staying with them. And oh my god, this is so embarrassing. But it's all about being open, and we've all done fucked up shit. I was staying in a hostel. It was just I think there was like 4 beds in the room, but it was just me and this one other dude. He was about 65, like, and he was sound as fuck. I think he was, I can't remember where, I think he was Australian, or he might have even been from New Zealand. I don't know where he was from. But he was basically cycling. I think he was cycling around the world. Like, he just had his bike, and he had these bags, and the way he could do it was all the bags would like pack themselves onto this bike, and it was a bicycle, not a motorbike, like. And he had all the gear in the room, and you probably know what way this is going. But it was just me and him, and I went in my first night. I met a couple of friends that I'd met in New Zealand, got absolutely fucking ball bagged. Came back. I'm woken up at, I don't know, 8 in the morning, and I'm just being shoved, and I'm just, you know, when you're being woken up and you're like still drunk, and you're like, what's going on? And it's this the New Zealand woman who's working in the hostel, and she's like, hi mate. John did had that real strong accent. I'm afraid you've been a bit of a dickhead. And I was just like, you know, your eyes aren't even open. You're like, what? Get off me. Like, will you ever? Get off me. Like and she, I'm afraid you've been a bit of a dickhead. I'm going to have to ask you to leave now. And I'm like, still totally dazed and confused. Like, what is going on? Got my thoughts together within about 30 seconds, because I didn't have any more than that. And I sit up and I open my eyes, and she's standing there. I actually think she just said that and then fucked off. And this guy, who was about 65, gentleman, he's cycling with all his gear, cycling all around the world or whatever. I had basically pissed over all his luggage. Like, it's so embarrassing to say, but I did it. And then the day that preceded, or the day that came after that, was, probably wasn't the worst hangover ever, like, in terms of getting sick or a headache or anything, but the feeling of, like, the fear, like, you talk about the fear. I had pissed all over this pork. Now, don't get me wrong, I think I gave him like 100 quid or 50 quid that I definitely couldn't afford to get it all dry cleaned or whatever, but like, what was I at? And I just remember, and I had nothing booked even for that night, so I was essentially homeless for probably a few hours. Obviously I had a bit of money to book a hostel, but I had booked this hostel for I think 3 or 4 nights and paid for it, and then they just fucked me out after the first night, which they were totally right to do. I didn't even go back and ask for money back. And I was out in the streets. I think I had to go to Burger King to get a bit of Wi-Fi, and I had to pack all my luggage within like 2 seconds. And I just remember being on the street like, mate, this piss and crack probably isn't on. And kind of ever since then, don't get me wrong, I did it a few times since in the next kind of year or two, but that was the turning point where I was like, right, you're definitely drinking too much when you go out, because I just wanted to get pissed and just have a great time. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm drinking the same at 3 in the morning that I'm drinking at like 9. Do you know what I mean? There was no like, now if I'm going a night out, and you call me shy crack, but if I was in a nightclub, say I was in McGowan's or something, if it got to like 1 or half 1, I probably would start like slowing down, like, yeah, but I'd slow down. I wouldn't be going mad in the drink. Whereas back then, it didn't matter if it was 3 in the morning. It's, let's go, shots, Jaeger bombs, everything. I never had that self-awareness to be like, I'm fucking locked, I should slow down on the drink. It was literally, who gives a fuck? What's going to happen? You're going to piss all over an old man's fucking cycling gear. So that's the story. Probably the worst hangover fear I ever had in my life, but thankfully haven't pissed anywhere drunk in a long time. So that's going to do it, lads. That was a long enough story. Thanks for watching. Next week I will have it'll be a pre-recorded episode. I'll have a very special guest. To give you a little bit of a teaser, it's going to be rugby orientated. That's all you're getting. So yeah, listen lads, episode 1, hopefully you enjoyed it. It can only get better. And this has been OnlyCans. And I'll see you next week.